So let's get into our first main topic. Our first main topic of today is going to be the United States women's national team's recap and observations from their first friendly against Colombia. So, what I'm kind of gathering about this game was the fact that this is probably the main squad we'll see for the She Believes Cup. For those of you who don't know, the United States host a international tournament every year where they invite three other teams to take part, and they just kind of play a tournament and just get it's an excuse to play international football, which we as the fans benefit from and we love to see. The roster that we saw out there for this game, I'm predicting will be really close to the She Believes Cup roster. Aside from, of course, including Kristen Press, Tobin Heath, and Alex Morgan, who are all out of the squad for this particular January camp. But um, both sides were really missing players due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I believe a few of Colombia's players did not play in the friendly on Monday because they came into contact with somebody who came into contact with somebody with COVID. So it was like you gotta jump like hop through tiers of getting exposed to COVID there. But nevertheless, they didn't let a few players play just as a precaution. And Tobin Heath, Krista Press, and Alex Morgan effectively have missed camp and are not in the roster because of some form of COVID-19 getting in the way, whether it's just travel restrictions or actually getting the virus. That's kind of where they're at with that. But um, that kind of begs the question, what was the lineup for the game? Let's actually get into that. So, for the United States women's national team, starting in goal, we had a listener from the Chicago Red Stars. In right back, we had Kelly O'Hara playing alongside Abby Dahlkemper, who played central defense. Alongside Abby Dahlkemper in central defense, we had Becky Sauerbrunn. Actually, I should correct myself on this podcast. She is still known as Captain America. We had Captain America playing alongside Abby Dahlkemper. Then alongside Becky Sauerbrunn on the left back position, we had Crystal Dunn. She played phenomenally. Now moving up into the midfield. In the holding midfield position, we had Madam Julie Ertz. And then on the right central mid side, we had Sammy Mewis. And on the left side of that aforementioned position, we had Lindsay Horan. Then moving up a little bit further into the forward line, we have Megan Rapinoe starting on the left wing, Carly Lloyd starting in the striking position, and Lynn Williams starting in the right wing. So that was the starting lineup for the game. With the exception of Lynn Williams, I think we'll see everybody else at least play, if not start in the She Believes Cup that was listed. I think Press, Heath, and Morgan all at least players start when it comes to She Believes Cup, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. The substitutions for that game included the following: Emily Sonnet, Midge, or Margaret Purse is her full name. Jane Campbell is the backup keeper. Katarina Macario, Roosevelt, and Christy Mewis, the sister of Sam Mewis. So those were the subs as well. Not a ton of surprises there, but let's just talk about the overall surprises in the lineup in general. A few things that really shocked me. No Krieger or Harris. I really expected Ashlyn to be the backup keeper in this situation. So I'm not surprised she didn't play. I'm surprised she wasn't at least on the bench in this particular case. Allie Krieger, I was shocked that she wasn't on the bench at all. I think she is the most talented of the remaining defenders that weren't in the starting four. So aside from Kelly O'Hara, Abby Dahlkemper, Becky Sauerbrunn, and Crystal Dunn, I think Krieger is the next most talented defender in that roster. So to see her not even be on the bench, I didn't quite understand it. But as I've mentioned on previous podcast episodes before, it's really tough to see after taking almost a whole year off who's going to be 90 minutes fit, who's going to be ready to play, who's going to be mentally ready to go. It could very well be that Krieger and Harris just had things going on and they just didn't feel comfortable in playing. Or it could be that they just didn't perform well in camp leading up to the friendly, and Vlatko said, okay, we're going to feature some other players. That could very well be as well. On the flip side of that coin, Jane Campbell must be catching Vlatko's eye in camp because honestly, I didn't even have Jane Campbell on my radar to make the Olympic roster as well coming up for the summer. She still isn't on it, but not even She Believes Cup. So I'm wondering if he's seeing something out of Jane Campbell that just myself as a fan cannot see, which would make sense because he is the head coach after all. So we expect him to make those decisions. But I just thought that was kind of surprising. I also thought it was really interesting that he put in two fullbacks as subs rather than introducing a center defender as a sub. So with him having Emily Sonnet and Midge Purse, it makes me wonder and it makes me think, okay, is he still trying to iron out which two additional fullbacks he's going to take with him to some of these tournaments? Like, it seems like more of a with him introducing so many fullbacks, it's like, okay, that's got to be the position he's still trying to iron out because otherwise he wouldn't utilize so many different of them, so many of them in a single game. He utilized four different outside backs in this game, so it's like, okay, he must be still kind of ironing things out outside of Kelly O'Hara and Crystal Dunn. So it was just really interesting. Last thing I will say about the lineup was that I was super happy to see Christy Mewis make the lineup again. After the year that she's had, after the saga that has been her story for the last 7 years, it's just really cool to see a comeback player like Christy Mewis with her current run of form being able to ride that and just keep it going and keep pushing through. So good on you, Christy Mewis, for making the roster for this game. Okay, so let's with the lineup thoughts kind of down out of the way. Let's get into some of the highlights of the game for those of you who might not have been able to watch. To sum it up, Mewtwo strikes again. Christy Mewis and Sam Mewis both scored for the United States Women's National Team. Sam Mewis scored a hat trick in the 4th minute. She opened the scoring on an assist from Megan Rapinoe. She was right outside of the, or I'm sorry, she was right inside the penalty area. Megan Rapinoe just had a nice soft touch pass to her, and she finished it as any player should, right in front of the net, went into the back of goal. In the 33rd minute, Samuel scored again on an assist from Carly Lloyd. Lindsay Horan took the ball up the left side of the field, had a long ball to Carly Lloyd on the other side. Carly Lloyd headed it back to Sam Mewis, who was in front of goal, and she finished it with her head, as she is proven to be really skilled at doing it for both club and country. So good on her for sticking to her strengths. And then to complete her hat trick, I believe like 10 seconds into the second half, Lindsay Horan won a penalty. And it just so happened that Samios was the designated penalty taker. Um, I'm gonna stick with that on here for 1 second. So, like I said, Lindsay Horan won the penalty. Samios took it and she scored. I thought it was interesting in her post-match interview. She said that it worked out that she was the next penalty taker up to take the penalty. What she meant by that, guys, was typically for every professional football team or soccer team, depending on if you're in the States like I am, you have a designated penalty taker. The coach appoints one player on the field to take penalties at all times. It eliminates fighting, eliminates egos. It just makes things a lot easier. But you have to have like a second runner up or even a third runner up in case that first or second person are on the field. So it just so happened that for that game that Sam Mewis was the runner up to take penalties for Megan Rapinoe because Megan Rapinoe was subbed off at halftime and wasn't on the field, so that left Sam Mewis as the runner-up penalty taker to take it. So it worked out really well. It's a Cinderella story if I've ever seen one, and we got to see a Sam Mewis hat trick, which it's so wholesome, and I'm so here for. Okay, so then last but not least, Christy Mewis makes it a fourth goal. In the 85th minute, she received a wonderful ball from Carly Lloyd. Carly Lloyd got possession, took it up the left side, made a nice step over move, got it to Christy Mewis, and she finished it with ease and threw her arms up in the air, just like you're seeing me right now. For those of you who are listening to audio, I have one fist in the air. I should have two, but if I did two, I'd probably fall down on my back right now. But nevertheless, Christy Mewis scored. She did it, and the United States Women's National Team won by a scoreline of 4-0. What a beautiful game it was, and what an excellent story it makes out to be. But let's kind of take a look at the overall squad performance. If I had to sum it up in a sentence, the U.S. dominated and Colombia was dreadful. That would be the way to go. What's really crazy is that I think the scoreline of 4-0 was actually really flattering to Colombia overall because they easily could have lost that game 8-9-0. I think that the United States had a very poor shooting day, and they still won 40-0. There's not very many teams you can say that about. They can't shoot, but they still score 4 goals and keep a clean sheet. It's amazing. But they had a poor shooting day, and they still found a way to dominate the game and dominate possession. So that leads me to think they had a great performance, and I think they certainly put in a shift, and they did great. It was really, really weird because Colombia was not only bad, and dreadful, but I'm being really mean right now, but like I've never gotten annoyed watching a team play. It was weird. Um, they would just do this. They start off the game like just really physical, really aggressive, and I'm kind of glad that they did because it fuels the fire of the game. It makes it aggressive. But then after a while, it's like when the U.S. started pushing back and start dominating the game and getting physical and aggressive back, they would flop like every. I mean, I saw a Colombian player on the ground. I swear to you, like every 30 seconds at one point. It was driving me crazy. And I think even Julie Ertz had a word with the official at one point, of saying, "Really, like this is like the millionth time that they're just flopping all over the place." I mean, Carly Lloyd got mugged, I bet you 15 times, three of which she probably could have gotten a penalty on in the penalty area. I can recall two instances, one in the first half where she was literally shoved to the ground on the right side of the field. Another one where Sam Mewis scored, I believe, on one of her goals. She got shoved in the back. It was just kind of ridiculous. It's like, okay, like it was weird. I usually don't get like that watching teams, but it was just annoying. Um, I digress. I'm sorry, I went off on a tangent there. The U.S. basically the shot count by the 83rd minute was Colombia had 0 shots and the U.S. had 21. That tells you all you really need to know. Um, I think Alyssa Nair only had to touch the ball 3 times. 2 times it was for a goal kick. The third time was on a corner and earlier in the game. Yeah, no, no, no. It was in the second half. There was a corner kick in the second half that Colombia took, and Alyssa Nair had to punch it away, and that was the third time or the second time that she touched the ball, and that's all she really had to do. So, the U.S. played great. They defended great. They were always on the front foot, and they came away with at least 21 shots to Colombia's nothing. So, like I said, they dominated. Um, and I think it's a good testament to the US's ability to win the ball at every part of the pitch. Their high press is fantastic. I think it's by far the best in the world, and I think they're the most fit team, and that makes them pull that off. Because Colombia never really had room to breathe if they got possession. It felt like if the US gave away the ball in the attacking third, within seconds they would win it because a Colombian player would turn around, try to take her space. Well, Julie Ertz is already in your face and taking the ball away, or the attacker who lost the ball is already on you, taking the ball away right away. So I think it was really telling as to the power of their high press and how fit the players were, which I think is astounding considering some of them haven't played in all of 2020. So that was pretty great. That's one really positive note that I had for the U.S. Going throughout the match. Um, I think I rarely saw Colombia really take the ball to their attacking third because as soon as they'd cross midfield, I noticed that the U.S. tactically, a lot of no nonsense defending. If there's even remotely a threat, which, like I said, you get to midfield, they would clear the ball out of bounds right away. I mean, Becky was doing phenomenally at that all game long, and I would say Crystal did too. Crystal had a great game. Um, and I will say too, Julie Ertz doing what she does best played a big hand in that as well. She dominated the midfield defensively and gained possession for the squad so many times, and I think that she did it again that night, and I will anticipate she'll do it again Friday too. So, moving on a little bit more to the passing game, I think that the U.S. the what really made them successful in this game was their superb passing. I don't think there's anybody in the team, maybe besides one or two players that passed poorly. Lindsey Horan, I remember taking notes during this match and just thinking to myself, "Oh my God, how many beautiful long balls is she gonna create? How many long balls is she gonna complete?" It was amazing to see. I think she created so many chances. She created the very first chance by passing the long ball to Megan Rapinoe, who assisted Samuels early on in the game. She created chances by winning the penalty in the second half. She created so many chances and completed so many really hard passes, and it made a big difference. So I got to commend her for that. The only person who passed better than Lindsey Horan was Abby Dahlkemper. Abby Dahlkemper was dropping dimes all game long. In the first half, she was 19 of 20 on completed passes, and it was just really interesting because it's like you don't even really think like, oh wow, like Abby's really tossing up some balls, and then you look at the stats and you look at the highlights. You're like, oh my god, like she's really she's doing a crazy job facilitating play. I mean, it even got to the point in the second half where Katerina Macario took a corner and passed it to Abby Dahlkemper, who was sitting at midfield, and then tossed a long ball in, and Carly almost scored from it. So Abby was mint all game long, and I think she played absolutely fantastic. And that's actually a good segue because the next note I had on that game was the U.S. really used some interesting set pieces that I haven't seen them use before. So what do I mean by that? Usually, when the U.S. gets these set pieces, corners, free kicks, you name it, they normally like to go for long balls because they have height in the box. They've got Lindsey Horan, Sam Mewis, Julie Ertz. Those three are taller than most other women's footballers, and the really good ones too. And they're really good in the air. So they typically try to go for these really long balls. But I noticed on a couple of occasions they would try short corners or set pieces. It didn't really always work. I'll give an example. Earlier on in the game, Megan Rapinoe was standing over a free kick on the left wing, and she was going to try to quick pass it to Crystal Dunn, who was making a run. But the short pass, it just didn't work. Something, miscommunication, maybe it was just a bad pass, but that didn't work. It was just really interesting to see them try it. The other thing was the aforementioned Katerina Macario corner kick all the way to Abby Dahlkemper way at the midfield line. I thought that was interesting. It's like they would take these short corners or these abnormally long corners and just try to do a long ball that way. So it's like I think what Vlatko's trying to do is he's probably trying to prepare for the future. He's trying to probably test the team in new ways, but I think that tactically it's good to kind of mix things up because otherwise teams start to figure out what your strengths are and they try to exploit them. So I think that by them doing this, it gives the squad a fresh new feel and a fresh new strategy that they can score effectively and do well on. I didn't think that their set pieces went terribly. I don't think they always work though. So I mean, I think it'll take some practice, but I thought it was just really interesting and cool to see them try something new. And also tactically, I noticed that Crystal Dunn, particularly Crystal and Kelly O'Hara were in the attacking third pretty often. I noticed that the wingers, Megan Rapinoe and Lynn Williams mostly, would take the ball up the pitch, and then you would see Crystal and Kelly, especially in the first half, kind of take that run inside in order to receive the ball a little bit higher up the field. It was cool to see them kind of do that because I think that's where both of those players really, really excel, especially at crossing too. Because once they get that ball, they're putting in for a dime cross. Having said that, I would say that Crystal had a much better game than Kelly in that aspect, and especially just overall too. I think Kelly struggled a little bit in the game. I'll talk about that later, but Crystal dynamite. Um, Another thing I really noticed too was I didn't have this revelation until the 85th minute came around. I saw Carly Lloyd lose possession, and immediately after, I think she followed the player she lost possession to all the way into the defending third and was just hammering at her to try to get the ball back. I think by then she was just pissed because she'd been getting mugged all game long, but it was really cool to see that Carly hasn't played and has been recovering from injury for like the last like 9 months. 85 minutes into the game after she's been having a ton of chances running all over the place doing the high press. She's still doing that in the 86th minute. I just thought that was an indicator as ever that nobody on the team was unfit to play. It was fantastic to see. And as I said earlier, the last little bit of overall squad performance thoughts. I don't think it was a really great shooting day for the U.S. in general. Lindsey Horan had quite a few stinkers that would fly over the net, fly wide. Um, a lot of shots were either right at the goalkeeper, especially headers. I felt actually really bad for Carly because she had like I think 4 or 5 chances at least where she'd get good contact on the ball, she'd get her head on the ball, it would be right at the Colombian goalkeeper. And I think by the end of the game, she's just so mad because between getting mugged in the box all game long and then heading it right back at the keeper, that's just not a good day. But um, overall, they still played great. It's just I think shooting was just one of their weaker parts of that game. Alrighty. So, guys, with the squad performance down and out of the way, I'm going to get in a little bit into more of the individual performances, kind of going through some of the starters and all the subs that kind of played throughout the game. I'll start off going back to front. So, with Alyssa Nair, she didn't have to make a save all game long. So, it's hard to say if she did great or bad. The goal kicks that she had, she kicked the shit out of them. She did great. um, Other than that, there's not really much to say for a listener there. Since she got so little action in this game, I have a feeling she won't play in the second one. I think Vlatko, um, maybe Vlatko hasn't said this explicitly, but I feel as though that Nair consistently has started for the U.S. Women's National Team, and she's still been in great form. So I don't see a reason why she wouldn't keep starting when it comes to big tournaments like the She Believes Cup anyway. So I think Vlatko will want to take a look at who else he's got on his bench, and we'll probably rotate that position for the Friday friendly. I'm going to the back line, starting off with Kelly O'Hara. I think Kelly didn't play poorly. By no means did she play poorly. I don't think she stood out though. She was aggressive as she usually is, and that makes Kelly Kelly, which is fantastic because you need an aggressive backline to assert their dominance on the field. And she also got forward when she needed to. That's pretty much all I really had to say on Kelly. Wasn't great, wasn't bad. She did her job and she did it well. Moving on to central defense, Abby Dahlkemper. I think Abby overall is just over. Or I mean, I'm sorry. Abby Dahlkemper, I think, has been vastly underrated in her career with the United States Women's National Team, and I think that this game was absolute proof of that. I think she was mint all game long. Her passing was outrageous. She was nearly perfect. She created a few chances and she defended very, very well. I think that whenever Becky decides to hang up the boots, or Captain America decides to hang up the boots one day, I think Abby is going to do great things with the squad and be a great mentor for whoever her partner in central defense is going to be. And I think she'll grow with Manchester City a lot and continue to further that development. So that's kind of where I stood on Abby Dahlkemper's performance. Next up, Becky Sauerbrunn, our Captain America. She was absolutely mint, I thought, as well. She had a great game. She defended very, very well. Didn't give Colombia very much a chance to hang out in the attacking third at all. She was clearing every ball that came near her, especially across the midfield, and I think she did her job not only well, but superbly. Next, I'll move on to Crystal Dunn, left back position. I think Crystal Dunn was the best defender of this game. She had a high number of tackles. She was relentless in her press all game long, whether it was the high press, whether she was defending it in her own half. She did absolutely great. She did a really good job at also facilitating on the offensive side of things as too. She was getting forward. She had a few shots that weren't too far off target. She was getting the ball and getting herself into dangerous areas on the pitch to give her team a chance to score. So I think Crystal did absolutely amazing this game. Sorry, guys, had a little bit of a sneeze. But um, moving on now to the midfield performances. So we'll start off with Julie Ertz. Julie Ertz has established herself as one of the top five midfielders in the world, alongside with Sam Ewis, ironically enough. But she was a general of the midfield for this particular game, as she usually is. She dominated defensively. She won balls pretty much every chance she got. She didn't allow Colombia to have the ball, I think, for more than 5 seconds. The only critique I will say for this match for Julie Ertz, and I think I've started to notice this as I've started to pay more closely attention to her play more, is that really heavy touch. She's got a really heavy touch when she's in the midfield, which if you lose possession in the midfield, that can get a little dangerous, but that's a nitpick. That's just me being hard on her, but she played great overall. Moving on to Lindsey Horan. I think Lindsey Horan was the second best passer of the match besides Abby Dahlkemper. She created chance after chance after chance after chance and had a lot of really precise long balls, and she had really good link-up play with Katarina Macario in the second half. So and she had these great combo passes on several occasions with Rapinoe and Macario too. So Lindsay, I think she wanted to come out with this game with a vengeance since she couldn't, at the last minute, play against the Netherlands earlier on this year. And I think she did a great job at doing so. So that brings us up to the forward line. Megan Rapinoe, I'll start off with Megan because this was her first game back in a long time. She was solid for her first game back. I don't think she has skipped a beat really at all. She was really intelligent with her passing, her facilitation of play. She got an early assist, made a really intelligent run there around the Colombian back line. Lindsay saw her, and it was great. I don't think Megan did like outstanding or anything. She didn't really get much of a chance to. She only played one half, but um, I'll just leave it at she hasn't skipped a beat, and I still expect her to make the Olympic roster this summer. Let's go over to Carly Lloyd. I think that Carly Lloyd, considering that she was getting, I keep saying the word mugged, She got mugged all game long. She should have won at least two or three penalties. Not she should have been given two or three different penalties on many occasions. I mean, I looked over at when she was on the ball, when she was making runs, she was getting shoved by the Colombian center backs all game long, and I think she had just had it. And I don't want to say it wore her down because now I don't think anything really wears Carly Lloyd down. She's just got that mentality. I think she really struggled this game just with her headers because a lot of headers, like I said earlier, were right at people. Having said that, she still managed to get two assists and play a really great game. I will, if I had to give her a number rating, I would say 8 out of 10 for this match because despite having those shortcomings, this being her first game back, she still managed to get two assists and was really vital in the high press all game long. So I think she played great. Really intelligent. One really intelligent moment I want to point out here with Carly was the first chance of the game was, or I believe the second or third chance of the game was Carly got a ball. I believe it was a long ball from Megan Rapinoe. She headed it right at the keeper, and I think she cognitively knew in her mind, okay, the next time I get that, I'm going to look across because I might struggle today and see who's over there. Well, the very next chance she got, she looks across, sees Sam, gives her header back to Sam, Sam scores. So really intelligent move, I think, and that's the kind of stuff you get with veteran players, and I think Carly Lloyd showed off some of that IQ. So, like I said, overall, she played great. I feel really bad for. So let's move on here to Lynn Williams. I feel really bad because I think Lynn had a really bad game. I think Lynn played very, very poorly. Um, she lost on one-on-ones on at least 3 occasions, if not 4. She lost possession quite a bit. She had a lot of errant passes. She was playing like she was scared. She was playing like she knew what was on the line and that she was kind of freaking out a little bit, which makes me think that she's on the bubble when it comes to this Olympic roster and the She Believes roster. And I don't think she really made a good case for herself in that match that evening. Um, and I know I want all these players to succeed. I am a supporter through and through. I don't wish anything bad on these players, but an honest assessment would be that she just didn't play great, and that happens sometimes. But in a time like this, when you're trying to prove your stock for big tournaments like the Olympics or the World Cup, you have to play great really, really consistently. If she can't, I don't see her making the squad for the Olympics if she continues to play like that. But let's kind of focus more on the positives a little bit. I will say she was great in the high press. She definitely excelled there. She was aggressive. She hustled like crazy. I think she knew she was having an off day, so she gave her stamina to the game, and that's pretty much all she could do. She just didn't play well beyond that, and it was really interesting. This is purely speculation. Go ahead and just take this with a grain of salt, guys. But there was a moment like within the first 5 minutes where Lynn was taking a Colombian left back one on one. She tried dribbling through her. She tried pulling a move, and she lost possession. And then she followed that up by following the Colombian player. And I looked at in the if you go back and watch the game and you watch this frame, I see Carly, Sam, and Kelly. Sam didn't really react much. She didn't really care. Sam and Lynn are pretty close from what I know. Carly didn't react too much, but kind of like put her head down. For those of you who are on audio, I'm just kind of like putting my head down in a really fast formation, going over to the right. And I noticed Kelly almost looked annoyed. Like she was just kind of like really like I think it might just be one of those small annoyances where it's like, okay, like don't give up the ball and then foul right away. That's just not a smart move. And I think that all the players have that with each other. But my main takeaway from that is I'm glad that this team is comfortable sharing criticism with each other because at the end of the day, in order to be the best, you have to be honest with each other and you have to challenge each other. And I think um, it just shows that they all expect a lot out of each other, and I think it really promotes a good team culture and promotes a lot of what's the word I'm looking for here? High expectation, because you always want high expectation if you want to succeed. But let's move on to the subs' individual performances. One really surprising thing, Vlatko didn't use all of his subs. Um, I don't know why. Maybe he was just satisfied with the ones he had, but who he did use: Emily Sonnet, Midge Purse, Christy Mewis, Roosevelt, and Katerina Macario. Um, Emily Sonnet, I don't know what she ate that morning, but wow, she played really well. At least I thought she did. She nutmegged a player twice. All of her passes were really crisp. They were really accurate. She defended pretty well. She got up and down the pitch like lightning, and she got into dangerous areas on multiple occasions. It was just weird because it was like I've been critical of Emily Sonnet in past videos, and not that it's unwarranted or warranted, but this game she definitely played like her left depended on it and proved me wrong. So I hope she keeps playing like this because it was really cool to see. I thought she played excellent. Mitch Purse, I for me she didn't make much of an impact. Small sample size, granted. Um, she had a small sample size. She only played like 20 minutes. I don't think she played great. I don't think she played bad. I'm thinking Vlatko will maybe want to see a little bit more from her. Um, I expect we'll see her in a game in the future. But Christy Mewis, she of course got her goal, which is great. Other than that, I don't think she really played all that great either. She lost possession a few times. She was a little wasteful on some chances. But at the end of the day, she got herself into a good position when it mattered, and she scored. So for that, I would say that she played good. Roosevelt got subbed into the game. She's excellent on the ball as always. When she has that ball, she'll make every defender miss and then some, and then she'll score. Um, Not a ton of impact from her from this game. I don't know if it was just circumstance or what, but she just didn't get a ton of action on that right side. And to be fair, in that game, I noticed too, the U.S. really loved the left side on that game. In that game, like all game long, I think it would not be an exaggeration to say 40% of their time was probably spent on the left side, if not more. Probably even 45, 50% were spent on the left side of the pitch. So, it was just a really interesting side note that I had in my head. But other than that, the last sub was Katerina Macario. She made her international debut. Like I've said to you guys on previous podcasts, I am really high on Katerina Macario and her ability. I still do. I still am, and stand by that because I thought she played great when she was subbed onto the game. It was a surprise to see her subbed in for Megan Rapinoe and to come in on the left wing. I thought she would be subbed on for the midfield position, but I really enjoyed it because her and Lindsay Horan had some great link up play. They had a lot of combination passes. Katerina Macario basically played like she had been playing with the U.S. her entire life, like that particular squad her entire life, even though it was her first game. She looked really, really comfortable out there. She showed a lot of confidence, a lot of poise. Within the first 10 seconds she was on the pitch, she got the ball into a dangerous area, realized that she didn't have an angle or a shot, and passed it off to Lindsay, who could get a better chance out of it. I just thought that showed really high IQ for a player that had never played at the professional level before, especially at this international stage. So I think it shows a lot of discipline out of her. I think it shows a lot of IQ, and I think it shows a lot of skill too. I think she'll have more opportunities to show off that skill in the next match because I have her starting that game, but we'll get into that soon. But she was also nearly perfect in passing. Her passing was nearly perfect, especially with long balls. Of course, she didn't complete 100% of her passes, but she was pretty close. She One thing that stood out to me was she took all of the set pieces, all the corners, all the free kicks, which you normally would see a more veteran player take those. I think if Tobin is there, I think she's taking those if Megan's not on the field. But nevertheless, I thought it was really eye-opening that she took all of those because normally only really highly vetted players do, which makes me think she is a highly vetted and really skilled player. But she also did a really good job at winning the high press as the U.S. normally does. And she was really great at when she got the ball being effective and kind of gliding through the defense and putting herself in dangerous areas. She did on one occasion end up getting a shot off, but it deflected off a defender and went out. So we didn't see a ton from Katerina Macario, but from what we did see, I've said this in previous videos. I will say it again. She will be on the Olympic roster for 2021. Mark my words. So this is a little early to be talking about it, but I'll just kind of touch on this before the second main topic. I apologize, guys. This main topic has gone on a little long today, but what does this really all mean for the Olympics? Since the Olympics is still far and out away, probably not a whole ton, but um, I'm gonna make some bold takes here. I don't think Lynn Williams is gonna get a ton of more chances to really prove that she should be on the roster. In the last two matches she's been playing for the U.S. and starting in the right wing, she's been not great. She really just hasn't performed well. She's been poor in attack. The really only place that she's excelled in is in the high press, which you got to be able to do both. You got to be able to help in the high press that U.S. likes to do, and you also got to be able to get on the front foot and score. And in a roster where you've got a ton of just world-class talent, you've got Megan Rapinoe, Carly Lloyd, Kristen Press, Tobin Heath, Alex Morian. There's not a lot of breathing room for error, and I think she's made more errors than would give us a reasonable doubt that she would be able to perform at a high level in these big competitions. So I don't think she'll get a ton of more chances, and especially with Macario playing really well out of the gate, it only makes me think that Lynn's number of chances and time to convince Vlatko that she belongs on the Olympic roster is thinning. Um, that's kind of a good segue because in terms of Katerina Macario, what does all this mean for the Olympics for her? I actually have her being the fifth midfielder to be called up into the squad. As I've said in my prediction videos for the US Women's National Team roster, I think Vlatko is going to take 6 defenders, 5 midfielders, and 5 forwards to that tournament. And I have Macario being one of those midfielders alongside Sam Ewis, Julie Ertz, Lozavelle, and Lindsay Horan. I just think it makes the most sense. And I'm even more confident in that assumption now because she's proven that she can play forward. I think by that, even by that small of a sample size, I think that's a big indicator that Vladko wanted to try in a different spot and that she can play in that spot. So I think when you've got that hybrid forward and midfielder, you want to take advantage of that because it adds depth to your squad. Emily Sonnet, if she continues to play well, she will make the Olympic roster. I didn't have her on my Olympic prediction roster earlier on that I made like about a month ago. I still Emily, like I said, Emily Sonnet's starting to prove me wrong. So if she continues to play well, she'll be on that roster. But it all depends. It all depends. And with Midge Purse, it's too early to tell. I don't think I've seen enough of Midge Purse to definitively say whether or not she'll make the roster. But that's just kind of my thoughts on what this all means for the Olympics. We still got a ton of time to go, and that's how the cookie will crumble. All right, guys. So I apologize. That was a really long first main topic. I promise the next two will be a little bit shorter. But those are just my overall thoughts and observations on the first friendly against Colombia. What did you guys think of the match? Did you enjoy it? Do you think this means anything for the Olympic roster or even the She Believes Cup roster coming up? Jump down into the comments below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. So, with the first main topic out of the way, let's get into the second